everyone, how are you feeling today? It's AOS everyone here, and today I'm coming at you with my Shiranui update for after the ban list of April 2019. Now, for anybody who asks why I didn't give any updates for decks that Shiranuis or vendors or stuff like that, well, the reason is because I like to wait until a ban list that change a lot of things in decks, and then it's changed the playstyle, and because of that, I like the idea of Summon Sorceress is a big hit for a lot of combo decks, and because of that, I decided to essentially wait until the ban list to see if confirmed she's hit or not, and she got hit, and now a lot of decks are going to change. That is my way, sorry. That's why I'm actually not updating a lot of decks, even though I want to update them pretty closely. I think three months gap is really okay. But without further ado, let's get started with the deck profile, and I think the deck profile is actually kind of sweet and nice in my opinion. It's not a meta deck, let's all be honest, but it's still pretty fun. So starting things off with the monsters lineup, I'm starting off with 3 copies of Shiranui Solitaire. We all know what this card does, at least his first effect, the ability to essentially tribute himself, and then pretty much summon a zombie tuner from your deck, and the other effect is that if this card gets banished, you can get to special summon a Shiranui from your banished pile, except Shiranui Solitaire specifically. But if you have the field spell or whatever that is, the name of Shiranui style synthesis, which some of the spells and traps which I don't run in the deck, but if you want to run that lineup, it's essentially you can summon 2. I don't think the spells like the field spell and all of those that cult like that are actually worth it, but you can do that if you want to. Moving on, we're on 3 copies of Spirit Master. It's a card that I'm considering cutting down to 2, but I also love this card so much. This card is simple as I normal summon it, and if I have a Shiranui in my hand or grave, I essentially get to special summon it again, and then when it get off the field, get banished, which is really good because it's then trigger the effect of the banished card, and then if this card getting banished, it's giving you the ability to pop a card your opponent control, which is really cool. That's really nice. Moving on, for the one-offs, 1 copy of Shiranui Samurai. This card is actually a lot better than I thought it is originally, because it's also a disruption by itself if you have a Shiranui Spirit Master in the grave, because you essentially have the ability to banish a zombie from your grave as a quick effect, and then you get the ability to become a 24, and any monster he attacked is banished. But generally it's a quick effect, so you can even do that during your opponent's turn, and it's essentially really powerful. And then if this card getting banished, he giving you the ability to recycle a Shiranui from grave to your hand, which is really nice. And then last from the old ones, 1 Spectral Sword is very generic. It's generic in a lot of zombie decks for the fact that what it does, it's essentially if this card is in your graveyard, except the turn to was sent to your graveyard, you get to target a non-tuner zombie monster, and then you banish both it and this card, and then special summon a zombie type synchro monster from your extra deck, whose level is the total of the level of those monsters. And you can only use the 4 courses effects once per turn. So it's essentially a way to get a synchro monster immediately, which is really good, and get like a level 6 or a level 8 even if you have a zombie like that, or it can even go up to a level 10 if you have one of the bigger ones, and then just go into Sun Saga. But it's specifically supposed to be zombie, so keep that in mind. And it has a lot of cool applications essentially with what is his name again, Crystal Wing, I believe, because you essentially go this, then go with a not Spirit Master, you go a Solitaire, and this, you banish the Solitaire, and you banish this, you go into a level 6 zombie, then your Solitaire trigger, and you special summon this, and you get to have a Crystal Wing or a level 8 Synchro as your choice. So that's actually kind of cool. Then the 2 new one-offs, I run 1 copy of Squire, which this card is really cool. It's let you to special summon a Spectral Sword monster from your deck, which is this and one of the new tuners, the new tuner. I like this one as one-off because it essentially also limits you for the rest of the turn to only zombies, which I don't really like, but it is not a really big handicap or something that limits you so much, but I feel like a one-off is more than enough in what it does. I might going to bump this up to 2, but in one-off it's actually doing its job. So it's like if there are any cards I'm going to cut and like switch, I'm probably going to cut 1 Spirit Master and put 1 additional Squire. And then the other effect, if this card getting banished, you got the ability to draw and discard a card. So she's a very, very handy girl. It's a really good card. And then last off is 1 Spectral Sword Shade. Shade is pretty much you get to tribute him if he's on the field, and then you get to special summon any 2 zombie monsters that are banished except himself, and then his own name, and then including a Shiranui monster. One of them has to be a Shiranui monster, so you can summon a Mizuki, and then let's just say Spirit Master or something like that, and then their effects are negated, but you cannot summon zombies for the rest of the turn, so it's a really good one-off essentially to extend your plays. And that pretty much does it for the Shiranui lineup. 10 monsters. I might going to cut that down a little bit. I might going to leave it the same and change a little bit monsters inside. But for the time being, I think this lineup is actually kind of good. Moving on to the generic stuff, I run 2 copies of Unizombie because I have Solitaire, so it's essentially become 5 copies. And because of that, I'm kind of like, I really like the card, but like I just don't have the space. Trust me. 3 Mizuki. This card is obvious, and then 2 Gozuki, which you can cut down to add additional Unizombie if you feel like Gozuki is less better, but I think Gozuki is actually sometimes even better than Unizombie in this deck, because Gozuki also lets you the ability when it's sent to the graveyard and you also have a monster in the grave, a zombie monster, you get to banish that zombie monster, which has a really, really huge application to with Shiranui monsters if they have some kind of an effect in the grave that can trigger, and then you're going to auto special summon a monster from your hand. So I think like Gozuki is absolutely ridiculous in this deck, being able to not only banish a card from the grave to trigger its effect, but also special summon a zombie from hand is really, really good. I do feel still that Unizombie is pretty strong, but a 3-off, I think it's a little bit of an overkill because you don't really want to see it way too much in your hand. So I think like 2-off is more than enough. And then that's it for the lineup of zombies. Now we'll move on to the hand traps. 3 copies of Gamma and 1 copy of Driver. Well, this card is not only here for being a hand trap in order to stop your opponent, it's actually also to defend you. Because your Shiranui essentially tribute a zombie monster off the field, and then most of the time it's going to be it, and then your field is going to be empty, and then your opponent is going to try to Ash Blossom or Ghost Bell it, and this is essentially a good way not only to stop that and destroy it, and then getting a free Omega in the process, but generally it's just a good way to protect your monsters if your field is empty, which is mostly going to be if you tribute cards. As well, like I said, it's just a good way to stop your opponent if you need to, like you got your Omega already, and then you just want to during your turn or during your opponent's turn, if you're trying to do something, and you just stop them, and just really cool and really nice. I think like 3 Omega is really nice. And the last hand trap and the last monster of the deck is Free Effect Veiler, which I recommend to be Ash Blossom, because Ash Blossom have a lot more applications in this deck, because it's a fire and a zombie, which is really, really important, because there's 1 new card in the extra decks that actually benefit from that. But Free Effect Veiler is also a card that lets you do a lot of stuff. So I think like if you don't have Ash Blossom like me right now, it's not that I don't have the budget, it's just I didn't really order it yet, because I didn't really have the time, and I studied and all that stuff, and I didn't really have the time to like put all my mind in the game, and I'm actually going to come back doing that again, but because of that I don't really have Ash Blossom. But if you have Ash Blossom and it's really, really cheap right now compared to what it was before, go and put Ash Blossoms instead of Effect Veilers if you feel like it. But I do also recommend just to have the Gamma lineup as well. It's actually really good. That's it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells, we're going to have only really, really small number of spells, like only 7 spells. You run 1 copy of Gold Sword because it trigger up your Shiranui monsters. Essentially, you pretty much put the one that you want in the banished pile, like a Squire or a Solitaire or whatever you want. It's actually really nice. 1 Foolish Burial because it's good in any zombie deck. 1 Monster Reborn because it's essentially a revival card and just an extender. 1 Barrel from Different Dimension, which is my particular choice because I like this card a lot, because it's essentially giving you another more fuel, another essentially 3-card fuel for the deck, like a Mizuki, or you can just bring back like 2 Mizukis and 1 Solitaire and then do all of your shenanigans again. It's just a really good card overall. If you feel like it, you can cut it down and put something more generic that you feel like it. But I feel like 1 barrel from different dimensions is actually kind of nice. And then to round off the spells, because we don't want to be interrupted, again, is the same idea why we run Gamma. We run 3 copies of Cold by the Grave, because essentially sometimes Gamma is not enough, because let's just say my opponent have 2 hand traps, so I'm just not able to deal with them. Now, of course, it doesn't really help me with cards like Infinite Impermanence and some other cards that, like, let's just say my opponent have Cold by the Grave on their field set, but essentially the only cards that I would say, like, absolutely asinine for this, like, you know, doesn't really, not asinine, sorry, really, really bad for this deck if you're going first, is probably Impermanence. The rest of the hand traps are actually kind of okay, and you can deal with them. That's it, the lineup for spells. Now move on to the traps. So first off, free Shiranui style solo slash. You pretty much tribute a zombie monster, then target 2 cards on the field and destroy them, and then you get to banish a zombie from the deck. So essentially, you're able to tribute like a particular synchro monster, or just generally a monster that like you don't really need on the field, and then you also get to banish, like, for example, Squire, and then you get to discard a card and draw a card on top of your 2 pops, or you can make it 3 pops if you banish Spirit Master. It's just a really, really good, pretty broken trap. Even with like tribute 1 zombie, destroy 2 cards is actually really, really strong, because zombies don't really care about the graveyard, but essentially also banish a zombie from the deck is ridiculous. And then we also run the Solemn lineup. We run the Solemn lineup. Actually, I should move it here so you can see that better. You run the 5 Solemn cards because we don't want our opponent to play so much. Not because of, like, you know, being a jerk, but because this deck is essentially slow, and this is a good way to essentially stop our opponent to, like, advancing in the game more than us, and just putting the 1 as good Solemn Strike, Solemn Warning, or Judgment essentially can win you the game. So these counter traps are actually really, really good. And sorry for the shaky camera. And then lastly, 1 copy of Imperial Order, because we run only 7 spells, and this card shut down so many decks that use a lot of spells right now. And just even if Sky Stretchers got hit on the list, there's still decks out there that used spells. A lot of them. And because of that, you're able to shut them down completely, and you don't really get hurt by this because you only run 7 spells that you most of the time only going to activate, like, on your turn, and you only need, like, 1 copy of them each. It's just not really that necessary. And that does it for the main deck. Now I'll move on to the extra deck. So starting things off with the Synchros, we start off with 1 Shiranui Samurai Saga, 1 Shogun Saga, and 1 Sun Saga. These are all, you know, the usual ones. You know them. You pretty much know all of them. Pretty much they're being for like 3 to 4 years, I believe, right now. But the new one, essentially, the new one that I decided to pick up, not the level 5, the level 5 is actually not that great, because you're not able to make it, and its effect is not that good. But the level 7 is actually really, really nice, because it essentially lets you to banish a face-up monster you control or in your graveyard, and then activate effects in a sequence depending on the monsters that you banished. So if you banished a zombie, you get to give all of your monsters 300 attack permanently. And then if you banish a fire monster, you get to destroy 1 spell or trap card on the field. But if you banished a synchro monster, you get to destroy 1 monster on the field. So essentially, that's why I said you want to have Ash Blossom instead of Effect Veiler, because most of the time you're going to banish the Ash Blossom and destroy a spell and trap and boost all of your monsters by 300. And just a really good card to essentially deal with an annoying Floodgate, or just generally boosting your monsters. It's just a really, really good card overall, and I think like Squire Saga is a nice addition, but I really wish this card was a quick effect. Like, if that effect was a quick effect, Shiranui's would have been in a lot of a better place, because being able to make this effect a quick effect is just really, really good, and it's better than what we got right now, which is not bad, but quick effect is a little bit better. And then for the generic synchro stuff, we run 1 Coral Dragon, because sometimes we make level 6s, and actually we're making a lot of the time level 6s, and being able to just make a level 6 that you can climb with to your level 8 or level 10, essentially most of the time you're level 10 and get a draw out of it is actually kind of nice, and it's also able to discard a card, which is really, really cool sometimes, and pop a card, so that's really, really nice. Omega, don't need any introductions, and then Crystal Wing, because like I said, the things that you can do with a Spectral Sword in the grave. And just generally, you can actually do that. So yeah, that's pretty much does it for the Synchros. Xyz, one Abyss Dweller and one Baguska as your essential floodgates of the monsters of the deck. They're being able to stop grave effects and being able to just stop your opponent completely in a way. It's just really, really good, so running these are actually pretty important. Then we run one copy of Triple Burst, which is supposed to be the Shiranui link, which I don't have yet. But the Shiranui link is a really, really good one-off. It's able to revive one of your Synchro zombies from your banished pile, I believe, and also protects your Shiranui and zombie monsters, which is really, really cool. And you want to run it at one. More than one is actually way too much. And then followed up by 2 copies of Vampire Sucker. I think in this deck book specifically, Vampire Sucker is very important to be a 2-off, and you can just like give it up on to be like a 1-off or whatever. And just because we also lost Summon Sorceress, essentially Vampire Sucker became more important. Being able to essentially revive a zombie and draw a card, and even reviving to your opponent a zombie sometimes is actually really, really good for you, because sometimes you don't really care about that, like giving them a resource, just so you can get extended. So essentially Vampire Sucker is really, really good. And then one Nightmare Cerberus, one Phoenix, and one Unicorn. Again, I don't have the Unicorn yet, but it's a generic lineup for links, and I think everybody agreed that these 3 cards are good. And that pretty much does it for my deck profiles of Shiranui. So hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe as usual. Remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, guys. Stay safe. And I'm going to start update decks that actually got hit by the ban list and see how they're going on from there, and decks that you requested. Just because I think like this is a good time, because we have the ban list and we know what cards got hit and what we're not going to be able to play with. At least for the next 3 months. So that's for that. So like I said, see you guys next time, and stay safe. Bye bye.